gosh, I feel so blessed right now. Triple H just looked me straight in the eyes and said, we want to offer you a contract and move you to Orlando within the next 30 days. Yeah, this is freaking cool. So I'm at a loss for words. I literally broke down crying, and I don't like to cry in front of anyone. And here I am, crying in front of everyone over there. So yes, I'm extremely grateful right now.
You know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
What you just heard was Faith Jeffries. Some of you people who have followed the Wild Superheroes would know her as Faith the Lioness. And yes, it is true. She is signed to the WWE as of SummerSlam weekend 2021. And SummerSlam just went off the air as I'm recording this right now. You're listening to the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. And yet another WOW superhero has moved on to doing something else entirely different from WOW because they cannot wait any longer. Surprise, surprise. This is everything that I said several podcasts ago, probably several months ago, probably several years ago at this point, because this is not anything new. I won't dwell on it. Well, I'll try not to. I tend to kind of ramble on when I start talking about WOW, because even to this day, I will get a message or a comment or something like that, you know, despite having kind of addressed WOW, and you can go back and listen to that show where I, you know, explain its cancellation and all that good stuff. But even now, you know, every once in a while, you get somebody that, not necessarily that they don't know that WOW isn't there, but, you know, have you heard anything new? Is it, you know, are they supposed to be coming back? You know, is there any inside track to it? You know, something along those lines. And the answer really hasn't changed. You know, and not just that, not for nothing, but I really don't think that a lot of people that were on the roster were even aware of its cancellation. I don't think that WOW did a good job of communicating that information to its people whatsoever. But, you know, that's a whole different issue. Anyhow, the point being here is that the former Faith, the Lioness, is now moved on. She is signed to WWE, and you better believe that there is going to be no working between the two companies if she is anywhere in WWE. According to what you just heard, she's got 30 days from that tryout to get herself moved from Vegas to Orlando. That is a cross-country move. Now, given the amount of people that the WWE has cut through like a hot knife through butter in the last couple of weeks, I would really hope that they are at least taking consideration what they're asking people to do. But at this stage, I don't know if which Khan am I talking? It's not till Nick Khan really is all that concerned with it. But the one thing that Faith probably has going for her in her favor is that she is a newbie, essentially, to the wrestling business. So they can really build her from the ground up. She's probably everything that WWE is looking for. And before we move on, I do want to say a public congratulations to her. It is funny because it wasn't all that long ago that I left a message on her Instagram asking what she pretty much done with wrestling. She's like, no, I would really like to do something with it. And, you know, this is like a week or two before these tryouts. So, you know, who knew at the time that she was going to be jumping back into wrestling and then getting attached to the largest wrestling promotion in the world? You know, all due respect to you AEW fans out there. But WWE is still, technically speaking, the largest wrestling promotion left, or largest sports entertainment. They don't like to refer to themselves as wrestling. But for those who have only known Faith through her WOW endeavors, or that she has only been trained through WOW, yes, the bulk of her wrestling experience has all been WOW, as Faith. However, to give her a little boost here, not that she needs it from me, she has been a very athletic woman throughout her, her life and career. She's, of course, we know that she's multi-talented. She's kind of pursued her music career and what have you. She is probably everything that the WWE wants. She's a statuesque blonde, so that's going to work in her favor. She doesn't really have any experience on the independents, so they do not have to beat the independent habits out of her. They can train her from the ground up, and she does have an athletic background. She's, believe, trained in martial arts and boxing. Of course, we know that she's done wrestling. So this isn't anything, completely new to her, and she certainly is willing to do it. But this will be the biggest change. It's not going to be the same thing as what she was used to. It's not going to be this case of, come in town and tape a couple of episodes and then we'll catch you during the next taping. She's going to have to get used to the grind of being in the WWE system. That being, potentially traveling around, wrestling every day, doing, even if you're not wrestling as a trainee, you'll probably be in a performance center 90% of your time. So she's in for quite the journey, I'm sure. So congratulations to her. But it does bring to mind, when you really think about it, how many people are left to even participate in WOW. Now, there are a lot of wrestlers that are still out there that I'm sure would pop back up because they don't really have a primetime spot, so to speak. As I look through the roster of people, some of which we've probably only seen once or twice, but let's go. I'll name a few. Abilene Mavericks, who was formerly known as Barbie Hayden. She's pretty much said that she's done with wrestling outside of WOW, which pretty much means that she's done with wrestling. I forget. It's on the tip of my tongue. Why can I think of it? Guerrero's daughter. I can't see it. Shaw Guerrero, who was a ring announcer there. Probably not going to come back right now. I think she's locked into AEW unless they can work out the way she could just do both. Serpentine, who we know as Thunder Rosa, she's already left, signed with AEW, former NWA Women's Champion. A lot of the girls have just filtered back off onto the independents. Malaya, I don't think she wrestles all that much anymore. I know she's done a couple of independents since leaving WOW, I can't say since leaving WOW. Since WOW was put on hiatus again. Santana Garrett, who's formerly in NXT, has returned to the independent, so maybe she would. Tessa Blanchard is kind of a tough call right now because I don't know if they should even want to touch her at this stage of her career. And it's, she's an exceptionally talented woman, but, whether she's worth the trouble following what she went through and was exposed on in Impact is a whole different issue. That being, for those who aren't aware, this is an old story, her using some non-savory terms to her fellow colleagues, much less terms towards black women. La Rosa Negra in particular. She's the one who levied the accusation against Tessa Blanchard, and the unprofessionalism that followed when she became the Impact World's Champion, and then following that just no longer showed up. So I don't know if that's somebody that they would want to have come back either. I'm not going to go down the entire list of things, but needless to say, a lot of them kind of moved on. Some are still in a holding pattern. I know that for a fact. Some are just waiting for a while to somehow return and they can go back to it. But it's almost 2 years. They taped in 2020, in early January 2020. Now, it's not entirely their fault for a couple of reasons. Access TV let them go because they have Impact Wrestling and they want to focus solely on Impact Wrestling as their one and only wrestling piece of content. So that's what happened when the new regime came in. Wow lost his spot. And then you follow that with, after they did tapings, the pandemic hit and more or less shut everything down. So, they've been the bearer of just overall misfortunes, but even with that, you would think that it could at least put something up on their social media, their Facebook or their YouTube or Instagram or something, just to satisfy the masses and give some of their talents an idea of what's going on, which I can tell you, and I will not mention the person's name, I can tell you that they had no clue that it was canceled. Did not know it at all. And then once I said it and I saw the shock or heard the shock in her voice, I was like, oh, it's canceled. That right there told me that WOW doesn't pass this information along. They're just sitting and leaving these girls just kind of holding in place. Diamante has moved on to AEW, as has Fire, or I should say Adrenaline, who is known as Diamante on the Independents, moved on to AEW. Fire, who we know as Kiera Hogan, has moved on, from Impact actually to AEW as well. So your Wild Tag Team Champions are no longer there. And with 2 years going by, whatever content that they've recorded is likely going to be extremely outdated at this point. Again, as I'm recording this, SummerSlam 2021 has just gone off. We are, 4 months out? Yeah, 4 months out for the turn of the year. It'll be 2022. That the content, whatever it is, I haven't seen it, don't know what's in it. I have no clue. It's going to take them another hard reset again to try to make any of that go forward. You have to crown new tag team champions. Probably have to crown a new champion altogether. It's just, I wish they'd just go ahead and make the announcement and say, hey, look, thank you for your time, but we're moving on. Anyway, speaking of people who have moved on, I brought up Kiera Hogan there for a second. And I want to go to her because Kiera Hogan, as I just said, has finished up her run with Impact Wrestling. Kiera had been there for, I want to say, the better portion of about 4 years. I do believe. Excuse me. And she had been, a relatively consistent, although she never won and arguably had never really been in top contendership for the Knockouts Championship, although she did become one half of the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. So, she's been successful in that regard as part of Fire and Flavor. I'm actually a little sorry that the team broke up. I wanted them to stick together for a while, but it just didn't work out that way. I imagine it was time for her to move on, or she wanted to move on. And, she I think she actually left in January because, they tape all this ahead of time. And it's not as if you wouldn't have known it because you would have seen her on AEW television before, or at least AEW programming before the airing of her final appearance in Impact, which was the 5th. And they lost. They, being Fire and Flavor, lost their final attempt as a tag team against Grace and Ellering, which prompted the emergence of Savannah Evans, who came out and attacked Kiera Hogan and beat her down. That actually wasn't the last one. That was what caused the breakup. The last appearance she had is when she came back into the Impact Zone and called out her former partner Tasha Steelz and Savannah Evans, but what she got was Su Yung and pseudo Su Yung or Kimberly Young. I don't know what she is right now. And they drug her off into the abyss of the netherworld or some other nonsense like that. And of course, they did on the nose dialogue, on the nose commentary, I guess, if you want to say that. Well, I want to say it because they had to go. And people said that they'd take them off to the dark realm and they're never to be seen again. Come on. The only thing I disliked about that is that they introduced this dark realm stuff again. I mean, I guess they had to find some way to, reestablish who Su Yung is and her evilness and et cetera, et cetera. But the issue was with Fire and Flavor and Savannah Evans. If anything, I would have rather the call out to work. Steelz and Evans come out there, but you let Evans do the job. You have a match, but basically turn it into a squash. Have Savannah Evans beat her up so badly that they had to cart her out of there on a stretcher. And, then you can say something like, I never seen any knockout beating up this bad. It'd be something if we see her come back, but holy cow, look how bad she looked. Something. It ain't got to be on the nose as a departure statement. But, it's one of those commentary pieces that they get beaten, and we give it just enough wiggle room that if she ever shows back up, she can. But, you're basically saying that she's out here. She's hurt, and I don't know if we're going to catch her again. Kind of like, and this is the old segment, when Mr. Wonderful, years ago, WCW was having issues. They essentially wrote him off of TV via a pile driver from the Horsemen. He took a pile driver on the, not on the mat, but on the outside, and he didn't wrestle again for a long time. And even when he wrestled again, he'd stuff her the stinger, and that was years later. But the essential point of that was to get him off of television. And that's what I would have preferred here. I would have preferred that they just had Savannah Evans do something, powerbomb her 5 or 6 times or something like that, to the point of where she was just incapacitated, and it necessitates the paramedics or someone to come out the ringside and take her away. But the end result of all this is that she is now part of the AEW roster. And, I have to say this about Kiera Hogan before I move on to the next story. Kiera Hogan is somebody that I had the opportunity to meet about 2015, I want to say 2015, maybe 2016. And she was in the very infancy of her wrestling career at that time, the Girl on Fire. And one thing she hasn't changed. She hasn't changed a lot of her gimmick and nothing like that. She knew what she wanted to be and who she wanted to be, essentially. I mean, it's morphed a little bit, but for the most part, she's known who Kiera Hogan is from the get-go. And one you could definitely say about her is that she was, and has never given anyone any reason to believe that she is anything less than a wrestling fan. When I spoke with her at that time, and you can find that interview and a couple of her early matches on our channels, speaking of that. But when I spoke to her at that time, she was just getting started. She had just gotten a tryout, I want to say the week prior with the WWE. Then she was starting to kind of branch out, and she was becoming an indie darling. One of those names that when you talked about women's wrestling, she was always in the mix. She got I think one of the first big breaks she got was getting to compete at Ladies Night at Booker T's World Gym in Texas. That was a big opportunity for her, put a big spotlight on her, and then she just kind of grew from there. She went from WSU, which, she probably regrets at this point. Like, I think every woman that's worked at WSU regrets it now. But at the time, it was a big deal. And for those who don't know why I say that, it's because the footage had been sold by the owner of WSU, and they've kind of repackaged that as almost like softcore porn. So, I mean, they can't change the matches. This is the way that they describe it when you go on LA. And I'm not trying to endorse it, but I believe a lot of that is on Tubi TV, TUBI. And it's a lot of the descriptions that the ladies that participated there dislike. They're like, we gave you a lot, we wrestled for you, and this is how you treat us. So, anyway, that's a whole different issue. But I think a lot of them really regret having dealt with that now. She's gone on Queens of Combat. She was she did some shimmer shots and so on and so forth. And then the next thing you know, here she is on Impact Wrestling, and simultaneously she was on WOW for a little while. She had really set her mark. She had moved on. She had her dream achieved. She was a professional wrestler, not a wrestler on the weekends, not a weekend warrior, not somebody that had to do some other job just to kind of maintain. She got to where this was her bread and butter. And she had done that again for like the last 4 or 5 years. Since about 2017. This is what she had done. And now she's transitioned to the second largest wrestling promotion in the world. Now, I don't know where she's going to go from there. I don't know if she's going to be able to filter her way into that main programming scene. That's what I should say. I was about to say main event. But the main programming scene of being on Dynamite or not, I know she just got the opportunity to be on Rampage, which is a big deal because, that's their number 2 show now. She went against Jade Cargill. I didn't watch the match. I need to look at it. But to see her and the way that she's grown and the opportunities she's gotten and all that stuff like that, I mean, it's incredible to have watched someone that you saw essentially from the start make their way to where they are right now. It's very nice to see. And as much as I say congratulations to Faith at the beginning of this for signing with WWE, big congratulations to Kiera Hogan for following their dreams and making them dreams come true. As we talk about Kiera Hogan, we have to go into what I wanted to talk about is the NWA Women's Pay-Per-View, which is set for the last Saturday this month, August 28th. And then the next night will be NWA 73, which also has, I believe, 2 women's matches on it. So it's going to be a full weekend for them. This isn't women's wrestling news, but I might as well just say it because it's wrestling news, and how can you not? Ric Flair will be in attendance at NWA 73. They've already made the announcement that he is due to appear. Now, since he's been released from, apparently he asked for and got his release from the WWE, so he is making his way back to his roots, back to the NWA, which is going to be interesting to see what that's going on. I may just order the package. I think on Fight they have a package for that where if you get both, it's probably like $10 less rather than if you bought them both individually. So I may do that so I can be able to watch it and give a nice review on the shows. I'm interested. I haven't been interested in anything NWA related in terms of a big event in a long time, but I'm interested in seeing what this does. Now I will say I don't feel this mode of this is historic the way that the NWA has kind of promoted. I know that it's like, oh, this is the first women's pay-per-view in NWA history, and yeah, I get it. But, how many more first women's pay-per-views can you have? I mean, the first one that I ever knew and I ever saw was, I think, in 93. Or, matter of fact, it might have been earlier than that. I think LPWA was a little bit earlier than that. And then WOW. And then, of course, you had some subsequent pay-per-views behind that with Impact. And they all have kind of levied the moniker with the first of whatever category that they've chosen. So, I mean, that it's a little hard for me to get excited on that front, but I am excited to see how the show is going to progress and how they will be able to pull this thing off. They got a lot of talent that's coming in there and a lot of ladies and one person who identifies as a lady. So I don't know what that's about. That still seems kind of weird to me, but I will reserve my judgment of that until I actually see the show, and I'll tell you who that person is once I get into the roster. I also told you that as I was recording this, SummerSlam has just gone off. It would behoove me not to mention the two things relevant to this channel. Charlotte Flair has regained the women's championship, the Raw Women's Championship. Surprise, surprise. And look, who thought differently? I mean, let's be honest. Charlotte was going to win, and we all knew she was going to win. They're on the push to make her a 17-time women's champion or whatever the heck. The goal is clear and the goal lies in sight. She's at 12 times now? 12 times of acknowledged championship reigns, and that's with them removing the 2 NXT women's title reigns. That's how confident that is. They don't even count that anymore. She was at 13, then they bumped it down. They went backwards. So I don't even know. I mean, I don't even get why they would do that. I thought that was the whole point to send her back to NXT in the first place, because she did re-win it, but they don't even acknowledge the NXT championships now. The other bit, before I say that, let me just say this. I saw Nikki Cross's post and how much it meant to her to be at SummerSlam, and she had tears in her eyes and all that stuff, and I get it, because that's probably the biggest match that she has ever had. And if you've seen her from the point where she was at, say, Shine, and she's wrestling in what is essentially a bar, to wrestling in a stadium, that's a huge deal, and that's a big win for her and her career. Now, for her character necessarily, or her on-screen persona, as I like to say, that's another story. I mean, I like Nikki, but I don't know if I'm really into this Nikki Ash thing, this Nikki ASH, almost a superhero. Because even with this turn to being almost a superhero, it is knocked her back light years. Like now she doesn't even look like she belongs in the same building as a Charlotte Flair or a Rhea Ripley, much less being the champion. And I know that a lot of that is because she's, I'm almost a superhero, and kids, you can be whatever you want, and I gave it my best shot, which makes me a win. That all that stuff that she talks. I mean, I don't know if they make her do it. They probably do. But you don't hear any of that stuff come out of either one of Charlotte or Rhea's face. Anybody that's there that has any sort of real position as a head talent, you don't see them say any of that. Nikki has cornered herself into being the comedy character, because you can almost guarantee that they are never going to let that go. Once it begins selling toys, and I know she said that she pitched it herself, and that's fine. But yeah, once she begins selling toys and T-shirts and making appearances at schools and the outfit and all that stuff, being almost a superhero, which is ridiculous. I mean, she won the championship. What else do you need to be a full-fledged superhero? She became the champion. That is as high as you're going to go. What else do you have to do to be a full-fledged hero here? Like, what do you got to save a cat from a tree, or stop a crime, or something like that? Learn how to fly? What is it that she needs to do beyond becoming the Raw Women's Champion? I don't get it. I mean, maybe if she was to show back up and she was able to beat Charlotte Flair convincingly, then that probably actually would work. That should make her the superhero that she wants to be. But as of right now, she's just she's pigeonholed, and I don't see her getting herself back into any sort of championship scene unless she tags up with Alexa Bliss or something, and they have their little hot, cold, crazy person superhero tag team. Which, now that I've breathed that into the existence of the world, it'll probably happen next week. I regret saying this now. Anyhow, one of the highlights of SummerSlam, however, was the return of the man, Becky Lynch. She showed back up and immediately squashed Bianca Belair for the SmackDown Women's Championship, which I did not like. I mean, it's great that Becky Lynch is back. It's wonderful to see her make her return to WWE television. But really, Bianca couldn't even get a competitive match out of this? I guess she is not the EST after all. It is all false. But if you haven't watched SummerSlam, you should probably go in there and watch, because there are other returns and things that popped up, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. But I won't go into that now because I try to keep this on track as a women's wrestling podcast. Speaking of women's wrestling, back to the NWA and NWA Empowerrr, August 28th. The entire card has been brought up, which I will read to you now. Kylie Ray versus Chick Tormenta and Diamante. They will be taking on each other in a triple threat match. The NWA Women's Tag Team Championship Tournament, which I am not sure how they have gauged this, because they already have two. I guess that they're only having semifinals. I thought they were going to get more than that, but yeah, they're already just at semifinals. So we've got the team of Hex, which is Allison Kay and Marty Bell, not to be confused with Hex that has been on the Independents, which I'm a little disappointed in, that they should, some of these established teams on the Independents should be there. If you know Hex on the Independents, that would be Ravana Sin and Nina Monet. If you look at WoW, you would know her as Siren. But here, Hex is Allison Kay and Marty Bell, and they will be taking on the team of Heel on Heels. That's Sahara 7 and Renee Michelle. And I am going to go ahead and call it now. Hex is going over. They're going to the finals. The other team will be the women in the tag team tournament will be Red Velvet and Kaylin King. And they will be going against the Free Babes. You can guess who's in that. Miranda Gordy and Haley J. That will be her tag team partner as part of the Free Babes. I am going to go ahead and say that the Babes are going to go forward, and they will take on Hex in the finals. Hex for the tag team championships. Probably, very likely, even though both of them left NWA like a year ago. So, but they do have roots there. So I think out of the 3 tag team matches that we're going to get that night, you're going to see Hex go over in the finals. The NWA Women's Invitational Cup Gauntlet with the prize at the end of this. The winner will go on the next night at NWA 73, and they will challenge for the NWA Women's World Championship against whoever wins at Empowerrr. So that's a kind of a loaded statement. So the individuals that were announced: Tootie Lynn, Jamie Senegal, which I hope I'm pronouncing that right. That earlier in the broadcast of the podcast, you heard me say there was somebody who identifies as a woman. Well, there you go. It's Jamie. Which again, look, if they want to be inclusive, that's their business. I know that they made it such a big deal that this was an all-female event. I don't know how that works. But again, I said I will reserve my judgment until after I see the show. Because for all I know, it could just be there as a comedy spot. But I still, to me, that's just kind of goofy. but I have to see it first. The first thing I think of is Harvey Wimpleman as Harvina winning the women's championship. I think about Santino Marella as his own sister winning the Miss WrestleMania Battle Royal. I was like, why do you need that? Why even the possibility of it? Anyhow, judgment will be reserved. Chelsea Green, who made a public plea of sorts to be in the main event of the World's Championship. That did not happen apparently, but she's in the Invitational, so she could get the main event the next night if she really makes it happen. Lady Frost will be there, as we've seen on NWA television already. Debbie Malenko, who's a name that a lot of people are probably not all that familiar with, most new fans. She's been doing this for quite some time. I think she's also started working in an MMA capacity. So it would be interesting to see it. When I see her on Instagram, she still looks in great shape. And I know a lot of her career had kind of taken place overseas and whatnot. So there isn't the cachet of a video that a lot of people get to see with her. Hopefully, the NWA will have gone and pulled some footage or shots or something like that, so to help educate the audience who Debbie Malenko is. I'm trying to catch up with her. I've really been wanting to speak with her, but she's kind of difficult to catch. But maybe I can make that happen down the line. Bianca Carelli, Masha Slamovich, Genocide, who, again, if you watch NWA, you've been seeing her on television. Thunder Kitty, who is a real throwback wrestler. She has claimed that she has wrestled back in the days with your Mildred Burks and and so on and so forth. And I say claimed that she's done that, but that is her entire presentation. That is the entire package of her, and I enjoy it. And the final entry in that is Kiera Hogan. So she is back in this thing again. She is going to be wrestling in the Invitational Cup Gauntlet. If they run the gauntlet the way that Impact Wrestling has run their gauntlet, it would be the equivalent of a Royal Rumble, although the intervals will be different. But we'll see if that's how the rules are. They haven't announced the rules, at least not that I'm aware of. So any one of these women can go on to win, and when they do, they will appear the following night at NWA 73 and challenge for the NWA World Championship. The first of two championships will be the Impact Knockouts title. Deonna Purrazzo, who, although she skipped around and danced around the invitation, ultimately accepted Mickie James's invitation to appear. Mickie James, who had a very hollow invitation out to the world, saying, I want anybody, I don't care what your contract status is, to appear. Now, she knew full well when nobody appearing who's under contract anywhere. Not without legal issues, they weren't. So that was just something to sound good. Nobody in the WWE was ever going to pop up in NWA wrestling, and they all knew it. And those are the only contracted players that she was talking about. But Deonna Purrazzo is going to be there. She's had a very lengthy title run and a very dominant secondary title run as the Knockouts champion. And she will be taking on Melina. Melina, this is going to be her first attempt for a championship in Impact Land, and I believe is the first attempt for a championship that is a non-WWE title. And I know some people out there have looked at her and given her kind of a hard time because the bulk of her wrestling career has all been in WWE. But Melina actually does have a somewhat of a wrestling pedigree, as she has been on the independents years ago. I think if you know what, I don't even know if this site exists, but I'm going to say it anyway, glorywrestling.com. There are so many faces on there that you probably recognize as being stars now, but back in the day, she was on there and as Melina Perez. And she was one of those girls that put her name into this website. It's essentially a giant database for a lot of the independents at the time. And it was a means for them to get their names out there. This is, the early phases of the internet. And they were there trying to, let promoters know who they were and where they were, what their personality was, how they looked, finishing moves, where they were from, so on and so forth, all of that. So that was what was going on at that time. They may have finally shut this site down. I just tried to punch it up, and I don't think it's there anymore. It was there for almost 20 years. Can you believe it? 20 years. And it never updated, but it was there. I guess they finally got to the point where it was like, it's enough is enough. I'm kind of sorry to see it go. But Melina challenging Purrazzo could be interesting. I'm actually interested in seeing that match more than I am seeing the NWA Women's World Championship. And that will be Camille taking on legit Layla Hirsch, who is tiny compared to Camille. I mean, the amount of memes showing this big girl, little girl, softcore porn picture that people have been floating around. Now, they didn't show anything raunchy or naked or nothing like that, but yeah, it was the first thing that people started floating when they saw Camille standing in the ring with Hirsch. She's so short. Now, she's good, but she's so short. I mean, it looks ridiculous to seeing these two standing face to face with each other. So it'll be interesting to see the match and how it works out and whether Camille is a good enough champion to be the champion that makes the other person look good. But in either case, whether that be Layla Hirsch wins the championship, which I do not think will happen, or Camille retaining, which I am pretty sure that that is going to take place, one of them will defend the championship against whoever wins the Invitational Cup. I also didn't give my prediction for the Knockouts Championship. I think Melina is going to give a good showing, but I don't see her winning the title. It would be kind of fascinating if she did. I would not be opposed to her if she did, but I don't think that she's going to walk out with it. But we'll move on to the next night. That's NWA 73. And Mickie James, who is putting together this entire event, I don't want to say allegedly, but that she's putting together the entire Empowerrr event, is going to be wrestling. She will compete. That is the only other match that is going to be, kind of the only other match that I can really say, because the other we don't know who's going to be in it. She is going to be taking on Kylie Ray. I'm interested in the match. Let me just say that first. I am interested in the match. I want to see it, and I enjoy Kylie Ray. She's a sweetheart of a woman. When I had a chance to speak with her also, so when her career first started, she was wonderful to talk to. That said, I don't know. She's not acknowledged publicly what her personal issues might have been to prevent her to appear at some of these pay-per-views that she's had in the past. Well, she walked out of AEW and she essentially walked out of Impact, which which really kind of necessitated Purrazzo losing the championship, or getting it back, I should say, because she lost it at Bound for Glory and in pretty short order regained it. When the match originally was scheduled to be Purrazzo versus Ray, but Ray never, she backed out of it. I don't know if if it's the pressure of that or not, but it would be something. I'm sure Mickie James will be able to get through whatever it is, and I would hope. And I'm not saying that Ray is unreliable or anything like that, but at this point, I would hope that they have somebody in the wings for whatever may occur. I'll put it that way. For whatever potential outcomes could take place, having somebody that's there would be ideal. Now, I will say this, and I want to rope this back around to Kiera Hogan for just a second. And it all connects to the Mickie James Kyler Ray match, or more specifically, it connects to Mickie James. Kiera Hogan, admittedly, you go in the interview. As I said, she has been a wrestling fan for the bulk of her life. This is not something that is made up. She didn't do this so she could become a TV star or an actress or transition off into movies and music. Now, those things may well happen, but that was not the reason that she got into it. Her YouTube channel at the time was Mickie James Fan like 79 or something like that. Mickie James is her hero. She's openly admitted that. She said that on multiple occasions. And the one thing that she wanted to do, even then, was have a match with Mickie James. Now, because their paths went in two different routes, Mickie, I think at the time, was on the independents, and there was a little portion of time where they could have potentially got that done. But then Mickie got signed to WWE. And Kiera went on to WOW, and then she went on to Impact. And then Mickie got released from WWE, but Kiera was still in Impact. And now she's going on to AEW, but AEW has allotted their talents to go work elsewhere because they don't have house shows. In much the same way that Impact does. Kiera Hogan is now at an event that is primarily being oversaw by Mickie James, her hero. I believe this is going to be the first time in her career that she's been in a professional setting with this woman. She's met her before. She's met her before as a fan. I think she's met her before as a professional, but she's not worked in the same building at the same time as Mickie James has. This is the time. This is the time, and this is the moment. All due respect to Kyler Ray, and I'm not saying that they should just yank the rug out from underneath her, but all due respect to her, this is the match that should have been made. They should have made Mickie James versus Kiera Hogan. The footage of her talking about her being a fan, her being a hero, and all this stuff exists. I have it. They could get it from me for free. I mean, I would prefer that they paid me, don't get me wrong, but they could get it. They could get it from me for free if they were trying to promote this match. Kiera, I mean, all it would take is a promo or two out of Kiera Hogan expressing this. This is the reason that I'm here. This woman is why I'm in this business. I have to have this match before it is done, before she decides to hang up the boots or whatever. This is the match that I was destined to have. I was born for this moment. She has pictures of herself as a fan shaking hands with Mickie James, which is not uncommon. I mean, look, we got a lot of wrestling fans who've grown up to be wrestlers shaking hands or meeting their heroes and stuff like that. But normally you see that story happen in a WWE environment. Mickie can make this happen. It is down to her. Now, I do not expect that it's not going to, that the Kyler Ray match isn't going to take place. But given what I just said, that if you were to have a backup, Kiera Hogan's as a backup to that match, assuming, and knock on wood, I hope nothing goes wrong. I hope Kylie shows up. She should get a chance to reestablish herself. But if for whatever reason something takes place, Kiera is the likely draw, in my opinion. I just wish that if it did, that they had more time to kind of get things across. So there it is, folks. I mean, that's a lot of stuff going on in the world of women's wrestling as it stands right now. I am interested to see whether Camille as a champion can do what a Thunder Rosa did or what a Santana Garrett did and being the or for that matter, Allison Kay, and being the face of that promotion and putting on some big time matches. I wonder, can she do what the other champions had to do? She's largely muscle. It's not like Nick Aldis. Well, I go back to Thunder Rosa. It's not like Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa has some stellar matches as the NWA Women's Champion, both in NWA rings and outside of them. I mean, even in WoW, when she wrestled as Serpentine, she had a stellar match against Tessa Blanchard. How Camille will do following her predecessor will be interesting to see and watch. If anybody there has any comments about Camille, Kiera Hogan, WoW, WWE, and his choices of putting the two elder stateswomen back in the championship, not contention, back into the championship scene immediately, or anything else that's been talked about here, feel free to leave it in the comments below. If you want to support the channel, make sure that you click the link below and get a shirt. New shirt designs are going up all the time, and those purchases do help support this channel. I will be back to talk about NWA Empowerrr and potentially the NWA Women's World Championship match the following night, along with Mickie James and Kylie Ray. Those matches will be great matches and a good show overall, or at least my fingers are crossed. I'm hoping it'll be a good show, and I am expecting Purrazzo and Melina to steal it at Empowerrr. I think Melina's got something to prove, and Purrazzo also wants to continue to show the world that she is as good as she claims she is, and that the WWE should have never let her go. In fact, I would say that Chelsea Green probably is living by the same mantra. But if you haven't subscribed to this channel wherever you are, please feel free. I would love to have you for this, for matches, for interviews, and everything else that we may produce on the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. So for myself and the channel, I appreciate you, your time, your support. This is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and I will see you on the next go-round. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.